For many years, people looked at the relationship between Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard and believed it was one of the great love stories of Hollywood. They were together for nearly 3 decades, shared a home, raised children, and built lives filled with art, writing, and acting. From the outside, their bond seemed deep and romantic, almost like something from a movie. Yet there was always one detail that puzzled fans and journalists. Even though they stayed together for 27 years, they never married. Some people thought it was simply their way of living freely without rules. Others believed their love was so strong that they did not need a wedding to prove it. But as time passed, the truth behind their relationship became more complicated. Their life together was filled with passion and creativity, but it also carried pain, conflict, and struggles that most people never saw. At the center of that hidden story was Jessica Lange herself, an actress known for her powerful performances and emotional depth. Born on April 20, 1949, in Cloquet, Minnesota, she grew up in a family that moved from town to town because of her father's work. That childhood gave her a sense that life was always shifting and never completely stable. She later described those early years as living like gypsies, always packing and leaving before she had time to feel settled. This constant movement shaped the way she looked at relationships and the world around her. Part of her wanted freedom and adventure, while another part longed for stability and peace. Those two feelings stayed with her for the rest of her life. Long before she became a famous actress, that inner conflict was already guiding her decisions. When she grew older and stepped into the world of art, acting, and fame, those same emotions followed her. They played a quiet but powerful role in every relationship she formed, including the one that would define a large part of her adult life with Sam Shepard. To the public, their connection looked like a creative partnership between two talented people who understood each other deeply. But behind the cameras and the awards, their story was far from glamorous. It was a story about love that was intense but often painful, about two strong personalities trying to live together while carrying their own struggles. When Jessica Lange finally chose to leave the relationship in 2009, many people were shocked. After so many years together, the separation seemed sudden. Yet for Jessica, the decision had been building quietly for a long time. At the age of 76, she has spoken more openly about what truly pushed her to walk away. And according to her own reflections, the reason was not dramatic or scandalous. Instead, it was something far more personal and honest. The realization that sometimes loving someone for decades does not mean you should stay forever. Sometimes the hardest and bravest choice is choosing yourself. Before Jessica Lange ever met Sam Shepard, her life had already taken many unexpected turns. She was not someone who carefully planned every step of her future. Instead, her path often changed because she followed curiosity, emotion, and the desire to experience the world beyond the quiet towns of Minnesota, where she had grown up. After finishing high school in 1966, she enrolled at the University of Minnesota with a scholarship to study art and photography. At that time, she imagined a life filled with painting and creative exploration rather than fame or acting. But the restlessness that had shaped her childhood soon appeared again. During her time at the university, she met a Spanish photographer named Paco Grande. He was older, adventurous, and full of stories about traveling across different countries. For the young Jessica, he represented a world that felt exciting and free. Before long, she made a bold decision that surprised many people around her. She left the university and followed Paco on a journey that took them far from Minnesota. They traveled across the United States and even spent time in Europe, living a life that was unpredictable and sometimes risky. They slept in cheap places, met unusual people, and often survived with very little money. Yet those experiences also opened Jessica's eyes to different cultures, music, and artistic communities. Eventually, the couple married in 1970, but their life together was not easy. Paco later began losing his eyesight due to a serious eye disease, which slowly changed their relationship and their plans for the future. During this period, Jessica also began exploring the world of performance. She studied mime in Paris and later moved to New York City, where she took acting classes and tried to find work in creative fields. At first, she struggled to make ends meet. Like many young artists in the city, she worked ordinary jobs while dreaming about something bigger. She even spent time waiting tables and living with friends in small apartments. But fate soon placed her in a situation that would completely transform her life. A fashion illustrator noticed her striking appearance and helped her sign with a modeling agency. This opportunity brought her into the fashion world and eventually introduced her to film producers who were searching for new faces. In 1975, producer Dino De Laurentiis chose her to appear in the remake of the movie King Kong. The film was a huge commercial success, and suddenly Jessica Lange became known across the entertainment industry. However, fame arrived with criticism as well. Many reviewers believed she had been chosen only for her beauty rather than her acting ability. Those harsh opinions hurt deeply and pushed her into a period of self-doubt. Instead of giving up, she stepped away from the spotlight and spent several years studying acting seriously, determined to prove that she had real talent. That decision changed the course of her career. When she returned to film, she delivered performances that impressed both audiences and critics. Over time, she earned major awards, including Academy Awards for her roles in Tootsie and Blue Sky. Yet while her career continued to rise, her personal life was becoming more complicated. Her marriage to Paco Grande slowly came to an end, and new relationships entered her life. By the early 1980s, Jessica Lange had become one of the most respected actresses in Hollywood. But the most important and challenging relationship of her life was about to begin. In 1982, while working on the film Frances, she met a man whose presence would change her world in ways she never expected. That man was Sam Shepard, a brilliant playwright and actor known for his intense personality and deep emotional writing. The moment they met, there was a powerful connection between them. What started as a creative partnership quickly grew into a passionate romance that would shape the next 27 years of their lives. When Jessica Lange met Sam Shepard in 1982 on the set of the film Frances, neither of them expected that the connection between them would grow into one of the longest and most talked-about relationships in Hollywood. At that time, both were already well known in their own creative worlds. Jessica had begun proving herself as a serious actress after early criticism in her career, while Sam Shepard had built a strong reputation as a playwright and writer whose works explored the darker sides of American life. Their personalities were very different, yet they seemed to understand each other in a way that felt rare. Friends who watched them together often said that their conversations were deep and intense, filled with ideas about art, life, and the complicated emotions that both of them carried inside. This emotional connection quickly turned into a romantic relationship, even though their personal lives were already complicated. Jessica had previously been involved with the famous ballet dancer Mikhail Baryshnikov, with whom she had a daughter named Alexandra. Sam Shepard, on the other hand, was still connected to his own marriage at the time. Their relationship therefore began in a cloud of emotional tension and difficult choices. Still, the attraction between them was powerful, and they soon began building a life together. By 1983, their bond had grown strong enough that Shepard even proposed to Jessica with an antique sapphire ring. According to stories told later, the moment happened during winter while snow was falling around them. They laughed, jumped around like children, and celebrated the promise of a future together. Yet in a surprising twist, they never actually married. Instead, they continued their relationship without making it official. Some people believe this was because both of them valued independence and did not want the traditional expectations that often come with marriage. Others thought it reflected the complicated nature of their personalities. Despite that decision, their life together soon began to look very much like a family. In 1986, they welcomed a daughter named Hannah Jane, and the following year their son Samuel Walker was born. Raising children became an important part of Jessica Lange's life. She often said that motherhood gave her a sense of purpose and stability that she had never fully experienced before. The family lived in several different places over the years, including homes in Virginia, New Mexico, Minnesota, and New York City. Their lifestyle remained somewhat restless, reflecting the personalities of both Jessica and Sam. They preferred quiet, artistic environments rather than the constant attention of Hollywood. From the outside, their life appeared almost perfect. Two respected artists living together, raising children, and continuing successful careers seemed like a dream. But beneath that image, there were struggles slowly growing inside the relationship. Sam Shepard had long battled personal issues, including heavy drinking and emotional instability. His letters to friends during that time revealed a man who often felt guilty and conflicted about his behavior. Jessica, meanwhile, was dealing with her own emotional challenges, including periods of deep depression that sometimes made everyday life feel overwhelming. Instead of bringing them closer together, these struggles sometimes pushed them apart. They loved each other deeply, but love alone was not always enough to create peace. Over the years, the relationship became a mixture of affection, tension, creativity, and emotional distance. What many people saw as a romantic partnership was in reality far more complicated than it appeared. Yet, even with the difficulties, they stayed together for decades, continuing to support each other's artistic work and raising their children as a family. For a long time, it seemed as if nothing could break the bond between them. But as the years passed, the problems inside the relationship quietly grew stronger, slowly leading them toward a moment when everything would finally change. As the years passed, the relationship between Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard continued to evolve in ways that were both beautiful and painful. They remained deeply connected through their shared love of art and storytelling. Jessica was building one of the most respected acting careers in Hollywood, while Shepard was becoming even more famous as a playwright whose works explored family conflict, loneliness, and identity in America. In many ways, the themes he wrote about in his plays reflected the emotional tension that existed in his own life. Their home was often filled with creative energy. Friends, writers, actors, and musicians frequently visited, and conversations about literature, film, and theater could last late into the night. To outsiders, it looked like an inspiring environment where two talented people supported each other's creativity. However, inside their relationship there were struggles that few people fully understood. One of the most difficult issues was Shepard's long battle with alcohol. Drinking had been part of his life for many years, and although he sometimes tried to control it, the habit never truly disappeared. At times it affected his mood, his behavior, and the stability of the family environment. Jessica later spoke about how painful it could be to live with someone who is constantly fighting inner battles. Shepard himself seemed aware of the damage his drinking sometimes caused. In letters he wrote to his close friend Johnny Dark, he openly admitted feeling guilty about hurting the people he loved. He described periods of heavy drinking, emotional confusion, and the fear that he might destroy the very relationships that meant the most to him. These confessions showed that he understood the problem, but often struggled to change it. For Jessica Lange, this created a difficult emotional situation. She cared deeply about Shepard and believed in his talent and goodness, yet she also had to protect herself and her children from the instability that sometimes entered their lives. At the same time, her own career continued reaching new heights. She received several Academy Award nominations and earned enormous respect for her powerful performances in films such as Country, Sweet Dreams, and Music Box. These roles often explored emotional pain and strong female characters, which many critics believed reflected the depth of her personal experiences. Acting became not only a profession for her but also a way to express feelings that were difficult to discuss openly. Later, her performance in Blue Sky would earn her a second Academy Award, confirming her place among the greatest actresses of her generation. While her professional life was flourishing, the private world she shared with Shepard continued to experience ups and downs. There were periods when their connection felt strong and loving, and other times when distance and frustration grew between them. They moved between different homes, sometimes seeking quiet places away from the pressure of public attention. Their children were growing up, and both Jessica and Sam tried to provide them with a stable environment despite the challenges they faced as a couple. Over time, however, the emotional strain became harder to ignore. Relationships that last for decades often go through difficult stages, but in this case the problems seemed to repeat themselves again and again. Shepard's drinking, combined with his intense personality and occasional emotional withdrawal, created cycles of closeness followed by distance. Jessica found herself constantly balancing love with exhaustion. She wanted to support him, but she also needed peace in her own life. These quiet struggles were rarely discussed publicly at the time. To fans and the media, they still appeared as one of the most fascinating artistic couples in America. Yet slowly, almost silently, the foundation of their relationship was beginning to weaken. By the late 2000s, after nearly 3 decades together, Jessica Lange would face a deeply personal decision that would finally change the course of their shared story forever. By the late 2000s, the relationship between Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard had reached a quiet turning point. Nearly 3 decades had passed since they first fell in love, and during that time they had experienced almost every emotion a couple could face. They had shared joy, creative success, parenthood, and deep affection. But they had also lived through years of tension, disappointment, and emotional fatigue. For Jessica, the decision to leave did not come suddenly. It grew slowly over time as she began to realize that the life she had built with Shepard was no longer giving her the sense of peace she needed. She later explained that loving someone for many years does not always mean the relationship is healthy forever. Sometimes two people grow in different directions, even if they once felt inseparable. One of the biggest challenges remained Shepard's long struggle with alcohol. His drinking had caused problems many times before, and although there were moments when things improved, the cycle often returned. Living with that uncertainty placed a heavy emotional weight on Jessica. She had spent years supporting him, hoping that stability would eventually replace the chaos. But as time passed, she began to understand that some battles are deeply personal and cannot be solved by another person's love alone. During this period, Jessica was also entering a new stage of her own life. Her children were grown, her career had already reached remarkable heights, and she began reflecting more seriously on what she wanted for the future. After decades of intense work and complicated relationships, she started thinking about the value of calm, independence, and emotional balance. In 2009, after 27 years together, the couple quietly separated.